Welcome to a special edition of Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar, episode 22. This episode, we finally tell the story how USC called the Big Ten and how it all happened. I'm so glad to finally be able to give you this story. We've been waiting. I think now is the good time, right before college football season starts. If you go to my pinned tweet, you've possibly heard the story that the Los Angeles Times, with a great writer, Brady McCullough, who did such an outstanding job, he wrote an article about how we broke the story here at Peek Around the Corner about how USC called the Big Ten back in March 31st. It was a beautiful story. He wrote it. He was so kind to me. Tonight, we're going to tell even more of the story. We're going to give you all the details that we can possibly share. We're very excited for this episode. We hope you enjoy it. So right now, I probably, for you, would hit the pause button, grab your favorite beverage, grab a bag of chips, popcorn, and get ready for this story. Okay? Are you ready? All right, let's go. Now, if you like, please hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to this channel. Appreciate it. Let's get that out of the way. Okay. This is an incredible story. A crazy story. I just wanted you all to know it was documented in real time throughout the months that it took for this story to finally get to the end result. Okay? So keep that in mind, because parts of the story you're going to think is so crazy, it's completely untrue. But it is. It's full of cloak and dagger. Completely. It was like a game of cat and mouse throughout the whole thing. Okay? If you want to know why all this transpired, because I just want to tell the story. So if it helps you, if you haven't watched this channel before, if you don't know who I am, go back to episode 1 of Peek Around the Corner. It explains the changing world of college sports, college football, and why this all happened. And if it helps, go to my pinned tweet on my Twitter account at Flug Empire, and you'll see the Los Angeles article written by Brady McCullough. But for this episode, I just want to get to the story. Finally get to the story. Okay? So here we go. On March 31st, 6:30 in the evening, I get a call from BTM, which is short for Big Ten Man. A source we have used over the years to break small and big stories. We were very fortunate. Very fortunate. He sits on a particular perch. We call it the money perch. He doesn't see all. He doesn't know all. His associates don't see all. They don't know all. They see just a couple pieces of the puzzle. They happen to be pieces of the puzzle that are becoming more and more important as we go on in the transformation of college sports, because it's the puzzle of money. Follow the money. The money seems to be making more and more of the decisions, not the administrators, for good and for bad. Okay? Let's get to the story. March 31st. I get a call at 6:30 in the evening from BTM. At the time, I was vacuuming my car out, my 14-year-old car out. The wife needed me to clean that car. It was just warm enough to where you could vacuum a car. I took it to the gas station, with the big vacuums. But it's still cold enough, like it's 34 degrees. Your hands are cold. But it's just warm enough after a brutal winter in Minnesota to where you actually could go outside and clean your car. So I was taking advantage. 6:30 at night, my hands are cold. I'm vacuuming this car, and I get a call, and I know who it's from. It's from the source, BTM. And he starts to tell me a story that USC called the Big Ten. And USC called the Big Ten alone, which we found out to all be accurate. He then went on to tell me this leak came from Los Angeles, not from the Big Ten. But it went from Los Angeles to the big money people in the Big Ten. That's all I'm going to give the details on who these big money people are. Once these Big Ten money people knew that USC called the Big Ten, they wanted this to happen. They wanted the city of Los Angeles to become a Big Ten city. They wanted USC to become a Big Ten school. Now, At this point and all throughout this story, from March 31st to June 30th, we had no information on UCLA calling the Big Ten. Zero. Nor did we have any information about anyone else calling the Big Ten from the Pac-12. And it sounds like none of them did at this particular point in time. Okay? So on this phone call, BTM is telling me USC called. They called alone. This is serious. And these are all the reasons why USC called the Big Ten. And these are all the reasons why Big Ten money people want this to happen. And the Big Ten money people wanted the Big Ten Conference to know that they knew that there was an opportunity to bring USC into the Big Ten. And they didn't want this opportunity to go away. Today, in the last days of August, people have learned that Kevin Warren is a man for the position. He's an expansionist. He's ready to go. He understands the changing nature of college sports and college football. But back in March 31st, you got to remember, Kevin Warren wasn't a very popular man in the Big Ten. How he handled the pandemic, how he communicated what was going on during the pandemic. A lot of people lost money. Little towns in the Big Ten. A lot of mom and pops owned businesses in Lincoln and Iowa City and East Lansing and Columbus. All over the Big Ten. All over the country. But in the Big Ten country was hit hard. Big Ten people wanted this to happen. The Big Ten money. They wanted the Big Ten Conference to know that they knew. So, as crazy as it sounds, as a nobody from Minnesota, I was going to be used in part of a soft push. I know it sounds crazy. Cloak and dagger. I get it. But it's all true. And we documented all of this, which we'll get to here in a bit. This wasn't my first rodeo with BTM in breaking stories. You can read the Los Angeles article about it. You can go at Minnesota 247. So I understand the motivation. And I even talked about it in early videos on my Twitter account at Flug Empire in the first week of April. I was clear that there was motivation behind me getting this information. In this phone call on March 31st, as I put down the vacuum cleaner, I'm in the car because it's cold outside, and BTM is rambling on this long story. He really caught my attention when he said, Greg, by the way, we want you to put out a couple simple tweets on USC tonight and be prepared that you are going to be bookmarked by the Big Ten, by an official in the Big Ten. Of course, my reaction is, you're crazy. Who cares what I tweet out? Yeah, people follow me, entertainment purposes only. We've broken stories on Twitter before at Minnesota 247, but nothing like this. And no one's going to care that I said what I tweeted out. I'm an absolute nobody, right? So, but he said, be prepared for it. So I put out a couple tweets, and let's get into the tweets. And let's get into the story. Okay. This is my first tweet at 8:37 p.m., March 31st, 2022. I put out the bomb emoji here. USC is watching. New Big Ten media evaluations have come in during current negotiations. We will discuss tomorrow. Everything Trojan is back on the table. Now, I did not put any details of that conversation into this tweet. And I did that on purpose. I just simply said USC is watching. And I'll get to why in a second. The next tweet at 9:27 p.m., March 31st, 2022. And now USC is watching Big Ten's media negotiations, which will result in a massive new media contract. USC is watching. Trojans back on Big Ten table. I showed another tweet that I put out on July 18th, 2019, which says SEC is about to get paid massively. Bidding war and SEC's Tier 1 football is going to be historic. Oklahoma and Texas are watching. For years on Twitter, for those who've been following me for years, and at Minnesota 247, we got all sorts of information that Oklahoma and Texas, again, from big money people, right? That Oklahoma and Texas were going to keep their exit ramps open. They were not going to sign an extension on the grant of rights for a new contract in the Big 12. They were either going to call SEC or they were going to call the Big 10. They called the SEC. Greg Sankey took the call, and we know what happened there. Okay? Now, this was March 31st, 9:27 p.m. I did my job. I did what I was asked. I did what I was instructed to do. And nobody put out a couple simple tweets. At 1:13 in the morning on April 1st, my phone lit up. I happened to be awake. My eyes were open. I was laying on my side of the bed, and my phone was on the end table. The phone lights up. I look at it. It's the source. I look. My wife is sleeping next to me. I sneak out of the bedroom, go to the living room, talk to the source. And he says, Greg, we have made we've captured a screen cap of a picture of a Big Ten official is now following you. I said, you're crazy. Why would someone follow me? Why would someone bookmark me? That was the term he used, bookmark. Just because I put out a couple of tweets. But they prepared me for it, or they told me this was going to happen, and it did. At 5:28 in the morning, I woke up. I took a picture of this, of them following, of this Big Ten official following me. And I sent it on to credible, reputable media companies. At Minnesota 247, at USC 247, and I sent it off to Jeffrey the Greek and Big Kurt at All Eyes on Big Ten podcast. I continue to do that, by the way, from April 1st all the way to the end of the story. Every time I would put something out in USC and Big Ten, I was followed. I was tracked. Even with people I was having a conversation with on Twitter, my fellow nobodies, they would be followed, bookmarked, tracked for about 24 hours. This happened 7 times. The first 7 times. I'll get to the 8th and 9th time here. And every single time I was tracked by the Big Ten, I took a picture of it in real time and sent it off to credible media people. So, let's get to the next tweet. On April 1st, we'll pick up on where we left off last night in regards to USC being back on the Big Ten table tomorrow on April 2nd. I do not want to confuse anybody of the tweets of USC Big Ten with April Fool's Day. Eventually, soon, the story will be picked up by big media. I was absolutely wrong on saying this, and I should not have said this at all. Not only because it ended up being wrong, because the Big Ten media did not pick up on it. I should not have said that because the goal of the people who was telling me the information that USC called Big Ten, they called them Big Ten alone, was they wanted this to happen. And the reason why the Big Ten was tracking me, they wanted this expansion to happen, the Big Ten people. The Big Ten was tracking me in all communications on social media was because they didn't want to be Houston chronicled. You remember Houston Chronicle broke the news that Oklahoma and Texas were leaving for the SEC before Oklahoma, Texas, and the SEC wanted that information to be out. So here I am. We're walking a tightrope. The big money people, there were people that wanted the Big Ten to know that they knew there was an opportunity to bring USC on. And the Big Ten did not want this to be Houston chronicled. But you got to remember, where we were on April 1st isn't where we are now in August, third week in August, in regards to Kevin Warren, the perceptions of Kevin Warren. There wasn't the trust that maybe Kevin Warren would pull the trigger on USC. There was money, big money behind this push. They wanted Los Angeles, the city, to become a Big Ten city and USC to become a Big Ten university. And they wanted Big Ten officials, the Big Ten Conference, to know this. Okay? Cat and mouse, cloak and dagger. It was happening throughout this whole process. Next tweet. I'm a nobody. Of course, that was the name of the article in Los Angeles Times. I'm a nobody. So why would Big Ten offices care about any of my tweets? They don't. Except they want to make sure there's not a real leak inside of their offices. I'm not going to get into if there is a leak. Spelled that wrong. But there is a story, USC brewing. Let's see where it goes. Okay? So that was the first set of tweets. Okay. This was my first video on this story. My little peek around the corner videos I do on Twitter. Now we've created a YouTube channel, Peek Around the Corner. USC called Big Ten. Detailed info will be posted later this week at Minnesota 247. Next video, USC watching Big Ten current media negotiations. Big Ten is eyeing traditional and social media communications on possible Big Ten expansion and why. At the time that I took this picture, there's 24,000 views, and now it's well over 200,000 views. So people have gone back and looked at this first video, especially after the Los Angeles Times article came out on what we did at Peek Around the Corner. So basically in this video, I got my ugly mug close to the camera, and I basically said, this is why USC called Big Ten alone. We do not know when the USC called the Big Ten. We do not have the date, and we don't know if USC did a third party or a direct call. But we know they called alone, and these are the reasons why. Okay? So basically that was me stating more information about that previous call on March 31st. Again, I was tracked right after this video from Big Ten officials. And every time I was tracked, I forward that information on to credible media companies. On April 5th, USC called Big Ten. I wrote an article, a big post at Minnesota 247. Story is just beginning. And boy, the story was just beginning. USC called Big Ten to explore a possible invite per BTM, the source. Again, if you look back at April 5th, no one had a clue. National media didn't have a clue that this was going on. They were, back then it was like, there's no way, a Big Ten conference wouldn't expand all the way out west. There's so many hundreds of miles between USC and the nearest Big Ten city, which was Lincoln, Nebraska. This is crazy. This is not going to happen. But we knew that USC was exploring it, and we knew there was a lot of people in the Big Ten, the money people, wanted this to happen. April 6th, USC edition part 2, crazy part of the story. This is when I get into the tracking. That the Big Ten was making sure this wasn't going to be Houston chronicled. The people that were BTM that was talking to me, they were getting. They at this point they said, "Well, we got this out. Big Ten knows that we know, so maybe we should fall back." This, I think, another video I talked about USC +1, +3, +5 possibilities. That USC +1, of course, that happened. And that was the chalk. That was the favorite. And we talked about that in the next video. And of course, that +3, +5 possibility is now emerging here in August, late August. We talked about all of USC's leverage, sort of like what we talk about Notre Dame's leverage right now, because USC did have leverage, and the motivation behind the release of the info, which we've gone over. So we fell back. We didn't talk much about it. The word didn't get out to the national media, but the Big Ten knew that. Big Ten money knew. So we didn't want a Houston crowd. I did what I needed to do. Okay, everything was done. Swarbrick, the Notre Dame athletic director. This is from David Hale, great reporter. This is, I think, from the SI, Sports Illustrated. Swarbrick spoke today about the concern we're getting to a two solar system model here. You have two suns with all the gravitational pull, the Big Ten and the SEC. People are going to have to figure out how to align with one another. I put this out there and I talked about it on Twitter because, it was Swarbrick also mentioned that he knew that there were other universities that were calling the Big Ten and the SEC to try to get a potential invite. He talked about that in the open. This really made a big news cycle. People thought it was a little crazy, but of course, where we were sitting, it all made sense. Okay. Let's go back here. June 13th. Right, we're getting close because the announcement happened on June 30th. BTM. So I put out a little excerpt of what he told me. USC's silence on PAC's internal affairs had become so loud, their local press and now national press has finally picked up on it within the last couple of days. They're hunting. The hunt is on. So what BTM and his associates picked up on was people were starting to notice that USC athletic director and president, they weren't discussing anything about what the PAC conference was trying to do, what Kliavkoff, the commissioner, was trying to do. Other universities in the Pac-12, the presidents and athletic directors, they were discussing, we're going to do this, we're going to try this, we're coming together, kumbaya. USC, there was no kumbaya talk. There was nothing coming out. It reminded us of exactly what happened in Texas and Oklahoma. Their presidents and athletic directors were completely silenced 3 or 4 months prior to the announcement that they were going to be heading to the SEC. Go ahead and Google it. You won't see them. No words about Big 12's internal affairs of what they were trying to accomplish. Same thing happened here with USC. And people were starting to pick up on it. I think at this certain time, Pete Thamel of ESPN wrote an article saying how look for a possible big change in realignment. I mean, they were starting to pick up on it. They weren't getting so specific about USC, but they were starting to pick up on it. Here on June 16th, this is 2 weeks prior to the announcement, TU regulations coming soon. Elimination of staff limitations, elimination of scholarship limitations for sports such as baseball and softball, massive increase in expansion for athletic benefits, direct payments from school to athletes. This is why USC called the Big Ten. I put this down on June 16th. Now you're getting reports such as Dennis Dodd today, August 25th, 24th. Depending when you're watching this show, this episode, talking about how Big Ten pushing for direct payments from either the school or the university. People are now finally understanding this deregulation. And that's forcing this consolidation. So we wrote this on June 16th. Again, there were 7 times at this point, 7 times where I would mention something about USC and Big Ten, and 7 times I was tracked I was tracked by a Big Ten official. I say that to you because here's the big one. This is the big one. This is the one time where I had to drink a beer. Okay? I put out a tweet, and it was like 9:09 a.m. or 9:08 a.m., and I deleted it because I used the word USC in the tweet, and I quickly erased it. I was told by BTM that it was very sensitive, that things were very hot between USC and the Big Ten. So I put, let me rephrase, sensitive time for Kevin Warren and Big Ten. That was at 9:10 a.m. At 9:12 a.m., I was once again followed by a high-level Big Ten official. I sent that off to USC 247, to Minnesota 247, all eyes on Big Ten podcast, Jeffrey the Greek, and Big Kurt. And that made me believe that we were in the final stages. This is the one big regret of this whole episode. Because at this whole story, from what I did, what I accomplished, and what I did not accomplish. Because this was the time, again, where I was being told this is extremely sensitive time, but there was nothing that no matter what I say at this point, this wasn't going to get Houston chronicled because this thing was going down. This was happening. June 28th, 11:24 a.m. I put out the tweet. Short Twitter peeker on the corner. Sensitive time for Big Ten. Edition video coming out tomorrow. I was going to do it on June 29th. And then life happened. Something happened, life took over. I couldn't make that video. I wish I would have, because the video I would have said, you don't have to believe me if you don't want to, but I would have said, coming soon, coming soon, coming soon, happening soon. That was going to be my short little video. Because there was no, this was going down. I wasn't going to stop it. We weren't going to be part of the story, which we didn't want to be. Then on June 30th, John Wilner of the Mercury News said that something to the world has changed. And then I quickly said a word, retweeted back to him, I believe you. I was sitting on the couch, and then it happened. It was announced. We did not know the UCLA information. My phone exploded. BTM called me and was laughing. He just laughed. They were very happy people all throughout Big Ten country. It was a big moment. It was a huge moment. Then I turned on the TV and I watched ESPN. I watched the Big Ten Network. The host of the Big Ten Network came on that said, in a move that no one saw coming, USC and UCLA became part of the Big Ten. Show after show after show, everybody was stunned and shocked that this expansion happened. Didn't make sense. Big Ten expanding all the way to the West Coast. And remember, when I was putting out these tweets, I got a lot of heat. We got a lot of heat from people saying, This isn't going to happen. USC didn't call. If they called last year. They didn't call this year. You know the tweets. Over and over again. And this was happening. We knew this was happening. We put out enough information to let the Big Ten know that other people knew about it. We did not Houston Chronicle the story. We walked the tightrope and we got it done. There were certain people that reached out to me that knew we had the story. Some national people. I'm not going to mention their names. Thank you for the wonderful words you gave me. The Los Angeles Times, Brady McCullough reached out to me on July 13th. Said they wanted to do a story. And of course, I said yes, and I gave them the professional courtesy of not talking about how we broke the story or the details of it until the article came out. However, during this time on July 13th, in early July, before July 13th, my mother and father were battling COVID, and I was battling it. I was helping them with this. So that was my number one priority. So this couldn't go forward. And then on July 25th, me and my wife went on vacation to celebrate after my mom and dad defeated COVID. My 91-year-old father and my 89-year-old mother. My wife and I went on vacation and celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary. So again, the Los Angeles Times had to wait, and I'm sorry about that. But family's always number one. Then we decided to open up this YouTube channel because there's so many stories I could talk about. I love college football. We're going to talk about the games actually on this channel. But we couldn't tell this story until the Los Angeles Times article came out, and it came out on Saturday. Lots of cloak and dagger. And that's what's happening now, by the way. It's happening right now. There's a lot of things going on. There's people trying to scratch other people's backs. There's this Big Ten that everyone has, inside the Big Ten leadership, everyone has to be satisfied. The presidents, Warren, and the media partners. There's a lot of stuff going on. We're getting information. We're giving it to you in the best way that we can here at Peek Around the Corner. So, that's the story. As much as I possibly could give. That's how much I could possibly remember. There were so many days of different emotions, up and down, right? We knew it was happening. We knew that late June, it was getting hot. Just like it's getting hot again right now. So, please leave your questions and comments in the comments section with this video. And I'm going to read them all, and I'm going to try to get back to them. We're going to do a live show where you guys can ask me questions about this story. You can go ahead and criticize me and how we handled this story. I know a lot of people have trouble with the ethics of what we did. Okay, so you can put those comments down as well. Please, again, hit the like button. Even if you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We're growing so fast. We appreciate you so much. Until next time, from all of us at Peek Around the Corner, to all of you, you all take care of each other. Thank you.